Hey y'all, I know a lot of y'all have noticed that I haven't been around much lately, either here or any of the platforms. And if you listen to the podcast or watch the channel, you probably were expecting a video about 12 hours or so ago. Most likely, on the part of the series about psychopathy that we've been doing with Lilith, and maybe even another guest, but there's no guests today. It's just me. I didn't get the editing done to do an upload on time. My bad. Honestly, it's a fucking miracle that I've managed to keep up with it as much as I have. I've only missed maybe one or two upload dates. Because I've been dealing with a lot. Even though my daughter has been out of this house going on almost a year and a half, we've still been dealing with residual effects, primarily of which would be a custody battle over my son, my younger son. His dad, even though he knew all along about everything and knew that I was keeping him safe, he waited until my daughter was out of the house and then weaponized that, claiming that I was not providing, that I had failed to provide a safe and loving environment for our child. So that whole battle's been going on for, it was right at a year, I think, around there, about somewhere, maybe a little longer, because there was a transfer venue that happened and then the actual trial for this. In the end, I was able to successfully prove that I was caring for my son. There was no abuse or neglect or failure to provide. However, even after 12 years of not doing anything that one would call parenting, he was still given joint custody because dads get extra credit for just not running away in this country. And I know people are going to get mad for me saying that, but look at the data. There's actual research. Yes, women, moms, get custody the majority of the time. But that's because the majority of the time they're the only ones asking for it. If a dad asks for custody, he is overwhelmingly more likely to get it. And in cases where there have been accusations of abuse, he's actually even more likely to get custody, because there's an assumption that if he has been violent or abusive towards the mom, then parental alienation, which you can go down a rabbit hole on TikTok of lots of content creators talking about the myth of parental alienation. There's also research out there about that. So in the end, even though I proved that his lack of involvement was entirely his choice, he said he wants to do better, so they're going to give him the chance to try to do better. And so our kids, unfortunately, what it comes down to is kids are treated as property under U.S. law, and his property right to his child means that he gets to now share custody. He's not, it's been continual tension since. The judge did, because there has been abuse and harassment in the past, and at one point I had to file a protective order. All of this is on file, and the judge was aware. So he did try to provide me with a little bit of safety by making sure we only communicate via an app. Exchange happens when he comes home from school. So that way we don't ever he designed it so that we don't ever need to be in the same place at the same time, which I do appreciate. But again, his dad got what he wanted and hasn't been happy with it, has had complaints about every part of it. He's not happy we have to communicate through the app. Today the issue is, well, how do I pay child support? He has current child support hasn't been adjusted yet, and there's a lot of back unpaid child support that he has to pay, and he doesn't want to pay through the app. He wants to drop a paper check, because who even has paper checks in 2024, but wants to drop it in an unsecured location for me to go find and pick up, which seems to be the biggest financial risk I can think of when it comes to making payments to someone, but we will figure all of that out. But I do want to point out that this is largely, it's not just that he weaponized this and used the opportunity, my daughter's situation, as an opportunity to get his plea before the court. In doing so, there was a guardian ad litem that was appointed, who, as it turned out, I did not know at the time when I approved her to be the guardian ad litem, turned out to be the attorney for my daughter in her deprived case. Because they're two separate legal matters, it's not considered a conflict of interest. And I thought, due to her reputation and everything, that she would be impartial and be able, and objective, and be able to, understand. She's privy to all the information, so she knows, or should know, about previous accusations, and my daughter's entire history. But what I found, actually, when she made her report, she basically parroted all of the false accusations that my daughter has made over the years as if they were fact, and didn't even ask me about them, and they've also been disproven multiple times, and they were easily disproven in court too. But I think it's startling, but it's also important that people understand. Like, she said it was a phone interview, and how I figured this out was there were some interesting anomalies in her report, right? Like, she made these accusations. It was like, where is this coming from? It doesn't even make sense. It's patently false and very easily verified. And so it started going through her testimony on the stand and the things in her report, and everything that she had actually verified with other people, she cited the source. But because she's her attorney, she is bound by privilege not to disclose anything that was disclosed by her client. So in each one of those statements, it says, I was able to confirm XYZ. And those are the only ones without a citation for who that information came from, so that it can be verified, right? And so, yes, going through her testimony, there was concerns that were weird, like, oh, she doesn't have food that's just packaged food, because I cook. At most things that we cook, we actually cook. We don't have a lot of processed, prepackaged snacks and things like that. And I was like, well, that's weird. That's a strange concern. I'm mistreating my child because I cook for him, And so then I started examining all of this, but it was all complaints and reports that my daughter had made to child welfare previously of, there's no water, there's no food, there's no electricity. Like, I actually had to do an explanation on how solar and wind electricity works, because we have an entire array at the house. Our electrical supply is more reliable than on the grid here where we're at. And so anyhow, folks with psychopathy tend to be very charismatic and charming, and so she believed her and parroted those things as if they were fact. And she's only 16, and she's got a lot of years to perfect that. But that's a very common trait with psychopathy that everybody should be aware of. Just because someone seems sincere and believable doesn't mean they actually are. You need independent verification for pretty much everything. And otherwise, and I didn't used to understand that, but we all learn the hard way.